Hello and welcome back or welcome to the Spirituality with Ashley podcast. I'm your host, Ashley. It's Scorpio season, everybody. It is Scorpio season after we've been being hit with all this watery energy, these heavy emotions, all this stuff resurfacing. It is sexy Scorpio season. I love Scorpio. The depth, the intensity, the sexual, undercurrents, love it so much. And I'm feeling really drawn. I feel like it's so timely. It's Scorpio season, and I'm suddenly just like, you know what? I was all into the mother wound, and now I'm like, the mother wound, like, no pun intended, but diving into the mother wound led me to the dark feminine. And so I've been feeling so drawn to exploring dark feminine energy right now. And I stumbled across this book that feels like it was just meant to find me at this very moment. It's called Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power by Kasia Urbaniak. And I just think it's wild because don't you love when the universe just aligns perfectly when you know what you want, you know what you're into, and then your energy just aligns perfectly with the people and the experiences and the synchronicities and opportunities to just align you on that path. It's like it's so nice to have that confirmation and validation from the universe. Like, oh, you're throwing all of these things at me that align with the thing that I wanted to dive into. Love that. Thank you for the support. I will take that as the green light that, yeah, this is a good direction for me to go in. It feels very aligned. So, yeah. So I've been craving this deeper understanding of power dynamics as I've been diving into my astrology. Oh my gosh, there's just so many themes that have been coming up in my chart. And one of my themes, one of my themes is kind of like the underworld, deep depth, intensity, transformation, taboo concepts, talking about things that people aren't talking about and kind of exploring that territory. And it's so aligned for me because I've switched my major a couple times. I have my bachelor's now, but it was a long road. I, I have so many interests, and initially I started off with I love psychology. I've always loved psychology. That is no secret. And so I wanted to study psychology. I wanted to be a psychologist. Well, I mean, actually, you know what? I wanted to be a writer, and I started with journalism because I was like, I want to write. I want to write books. Love writing. Still love it. And then as I was in the journalism program, journalism and communications, I was like, I actually think I love psychology. I'd rather do psychology as my career. I've always been so concerned about doing something I'm passionate about, like writing or art, because I also grew up drawing and painting and being very artistic. My mom's an artist, and so I think I just inherited that gene or something. So I was always really interested in it. She was also an art teacher, and so I just always been kind of like, artsy and very creative and like I definitely have an artist's temperament. But I never, people would ask me like, "Oh, do you want to be an artist when you grow up?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to be poor and starving," because I had that starving artist archetype just burned into me. I don't, I'm not sure from where. I mean, I know my mom struggled financially. She struggled in life a bit, but she also was like on top of the world financially at certain points. So anyway, and I think this is so important to mention in this episode because it's almost like the things that I was passionate about, I didn't feel like I could pursue them. I felt like they were not my paths to success. I thought my path to success was doing what society told me was the path to success. And so I never considered doing art professionally. I never considered, I mean, I did write professionally for a little while. I was a freelance writer after I got divorced to help me to eat because I had no money. And I didn't get paid very much, but I loved doing it. I loved doing the research. I loved writing the articles, especially because after I did it for a while, I got to really choose my niche. And so I got to write a bunch of fitness and health and nutrition articles, which I love. So I, bringing this all back, as I've been learning about astrology, learning about my purpose, doing all of my psychic readings, my Akashic Records readings and stuff, I've really been lately exploring my relationship with pleasure and joy. I have a lot of blockages in my sacral chakra. I have a lot of like solar plexus stuff, my root chakra, my lower chakras, which are very much a part of the dark feminine journey, healing your lower chakras. And yeah, so as I've been doing this deep dive into astrology, it's bringing up so many things for me to look at that I didn't even know I needed to look at, which I absolutely love. Like I said, the undercurrents, the hidden things, I love all of that. So I'm always talking about the subconscious. And I found this book and I was like, oh, yes. And I just feel like it's such an incredible resource for women who potentially would like to start exploring the reclamation of their power, being able to stand in your power and get rid of this ingrained good girl persona that we feel like we need to express. And I'm going to get into that because it pisses me off. I have it so much. Thank you, Libra moon. And I'm sure lots of other aspects of my chart. I'm not a pro yet, so I can't put them all together, but I am learning to put them all together right now. Libra moon just stands out to me. And to fully the book can also, I think, is a great resource for helping women to fully embody their inner authority. And because I feel like a lot of us have this disconnection with our inner authority because we're taught that, like, especially we're taught, I'm trying to finish my sentences because I know I tend to jump around with like these half sentences. I think it's really important for us to learn to embody our authority because one of the good girl persona things that we are societally ingrained with, one of those societal expectations that we grew up being trained for, was that if you are being too much, if you are too assertive, if you're too aggressive, if you are too much embodied in your power, then you're a bitch or you're conceited or you're full of yourself or you're a slut or like women, I feel like, have been shamed a lot for embodying their power and really owning their inner authority and embodying that. And I also feel like there's a disconnect because when that can be power and authority can be embodied in a very unhealthy, toxic way where your energy is not aligned with the embodiment of authority. Your energy is actually more insecure, but then you're trying to put on this air of like, oh, well, I am confident. And when your energy is incongruent, it produces an incongruent result, which means if you, when women have, put on the role and worn a dominant hat, it's not always met well or openly received. And then those women are vilified. And that's part of why working with the dark feminine, we get to explore Lilith and her story and Hecate and Medusa and Morrigan and just all of these really strong dark feminine archetypes that have been vilified, and they're cast as the villain, but they're actually these really strong feminine archetypes for these things that we need to remember to own within ourselves, to reclaim our self-worth, reclaim our power, and really be able to stand in that and be proud of our femininity. And I say that because I feel like I've run from my femininity a lot of my life, which feels weird to say out loud, but like my mom was she didn't wear a lot of dresses. I want to say she was kind of tomboyish. She was very artsy. So she wore very eclectic, like eccentric and like she had really cool, very unique style. But I don't remember seeing her wear a lot of dresses. And growing up, I wanted to be just like my mom, to the point that I wanted to be a white lady with very thin lips. And I even wanted blonde hair and blue eyes. I wanted to like go hard in the paint with being like a white lady. That was what I epitomized as like, this is the ideal white lady. My mom has had brown hair and brown eyes, but I was just like, well, if I'm going to pretend to be a white lady, I'm going to make it like, as super white as I can. I don't know. I've always loved blue eyes and blonde hair. I went through this phase when I was a young child. I feel like it was third and fourth grade. I was obsessed. If you were a little blonde, I was a little child at the time. So when I was in third and fourth grade, if you were in elementary school, it doesn't even matter if you were in school and you were a white, blonde, blue-eyed boy with a bowl cut. Oh my God, get out of here. I was so there for it. It was my whole jam. And I've had a lot of identity issues throughout my life with owning my racial identity. Like there's just, oh, there's so much tied up into this. And I don't want to go into like all of that, but I do want to talk about standing in your power and really embodying that. And I want to kind of like follow the chapters of the book I've only read. And when I say read, I'm listening to it. I'm listening to the audiobook because I want to get through this. I want to really take in all the content first and like hear it, go over it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to physically read it. I ordered the book, and so I'm waiting for the book to get here on Saturday, I think. It's Thursday today. And so I'm listening to the audiobook while I wait for the physical book to get here. Then I'm going to go back through and like dog ear it. And I almost said earmark. Is earmark over? I'm going to bend the pages to like mark spot. Well, I won't bend the pages because the Virgo in me cannot allow a book not to be crisp and beautiful. So I'm going to put my cutesy little bookmark sticky things to like notate the pages and quotes and stuff that I want to talk about. But I did do some research and I am still going to include some of that stuff today, but I'm so excited to kind of start this journey and share it with you guys. So, and when I say kind of, I meant like fully dive into this. I'm so into it right now. And as if you have been around listening to the podcast for a little while, you know that sometimes I'm super into stuff and I'll be really into it for a month and then I don't talk about it anymore. So right now, super into the dark feminine. We're running with it. I'm not putting this pressure on myself anymore. I'm over it, man. I'm just gonna be who I am. Right now, I'm like, ooh, dark feminine, Ashley. We're here for the badassery and owning our power and just standing in our strength, this strong feminine archetypes. Love that. All right, so where are we at? So the book's purpose. So the whole thing with the book, Kasia Kasia, I maybe should have figured out how to say her name, but Kasia. I'm going to say Kasia Urbaniak. I know I'm saying that wrong, but her book is this, it's almost, you can kind of look at it as this powerful guide for redefining power for women. And it really talks about power dynamics just all around, not necessarily like just for women. I love that she talks about it as just a neutral concept. She is using the book as a way to convey her message of female empowerment. So she is speaking to women, it feels like, but I feel like these principles, like this is important for everyone because men also have the feminine aspect of them. Like, and we all have this power dynamic of give and take, or dominance and submission, receiving and giving. I'm just repeating myself now. So anyway, I stumbled across the book and I'm loving that it's challenging these traditional power structures and it explores how to use our energy to focus and reclaim our power without resorting to force or control. And that's part of what like really got me into it because I've had experiences with BDSM. Like I've tried that kind of relationship before because I'm very sexually adventurous. And just disclaimer, trigger warning, just for future upcoming episodes, I will try to give it more. I'm really going to just start talking about whatever I want to talk about and stop giving a crap about what society or anybody thinks. So anal sex, sex, money, like all of these taboo topics, I'm going to start talking about them because I feel kind of uncomfortable about it because I'm like, oop, I don't want to like overstep. No, I do. I want to take up space. I want to stand in my power and I want to talk about the things that I'm passionate about and that I'm interested in. And I'm interested in talking about the things that people are uncomfortable talking about. So, because I love that. Oh, like I said, the undercurrent, the underworld, the darker things, the shadows, the stuff that, isn't in the limelight because it can be a little nuanced, we'll say. So I love that she talks about reclaiming your power and dominance and submission as far as the way that energy works and where you're focusing your attention and the congruency of focusing your attention and aligning your words and your tone where your attention is focused. That is what domination and submission is about. And it's so wild because reading this book is very cathartic for me, because when I had that BDSM relationship, it was with my ex-husband, by the way. I'm also another sidebar disclaimer. I'm just making all these declarations today. I think that's part of my healing process, healing my throat chakra, because like owning my voice and really feeling empowered and speaking my truth and sharing this stuff is a part of my journey. It's a part of my healing journey. And so I'm letting go of the whole like, oh no, that's really personal. Should I share that? If I feel like talking about it, I'm going to talk about it, whether you think it's personal or I think it's personal or not. Because I don't feel like, oh, if I want to talk about it and it's personal and I feel comfortable, then who cares? If you are uncomfortable, don't listen to it. That's where we're at. So I want to create an environment where everybody just feels comfortable being themselves and talking about the things that they want to talk about without worrying about repercussions or what people are going to think or how it's going to be received, because everybody's going to receive stuff through their lens, regardless of what your intention is anyway. So screw it. So anyway, I like that one of the most eye-opening ideas in the book was how she explained the energetics of power dynamics, especially around domination and submission. And they're not dirty words. It's not about controlling somebody. It's about influence. And I think it is manipulation, but not, I feel like the word manipulation has such a negative, has this like stigma that goes with it. But manipulation is just, it's not always a bad thing. Manipulation can be used in a negative way, but it can also be used in a positive way. Okay, so let's all be open-minded, because remember, things are not black and white. So just looking at manipulation as negative would be very black and white thinking. We're on a spectrum of gray, 50 shades of gray. This is so I love that I'm talking about like domination and submission, and then I was like, yeah, 50 shades of gray. Oh, actually that's probably how she got the title, because that all is, goes together. All right, I'm just going to continue with what I was saying. Oh, so anyway, domination and submission are about where you focus your energy, as I mentioned previously. Submission is not about giving in, it's not about being weak. It's about turning your energy inward, which can be just as powerful. When you're submissive, the way that she describes it in the book is you're turning your attention inward and you're focusing on your wants and your needs. When you're being dominating, you are focusing your attention outward. You're focusing your attention on that person. So a dominatrix, one who is good at it, and I forgot to mention that about this book, but let me finish this thought, because we know my brain will just go on to the 400th thought I'm having at this moment. So crap. And it happened as I was explaining that. I need to just talk and say what I'm going to say. So the thing that I was going to say about the book, which like pulled me in immediately, the reason I was immediately like, I need to read this book, the author studied to be a nun, some kind of like, I think it's God, I want to say some kind of Buddhist nun. It's not like the book is about that, but she does talk about her story and how she got onto the path that she's on, of teaching women to embody their power and teaching women to be dominatrixes or dominatrices. I don't know how to say that word in the plural form. And so she was one of the top dominatrixes in the world while she was studying for 15 years to be a nun. How wild is that? And I do think it was in Buddhism, because she mentions Tao, and like when she was studying the Taoism and stuff, and how that actually played into the power dynamics and how she was interacting as a dominatrix. And she just sounds like such a badass bitch. I'm so here for it. Like, I secretly love you. Teach me everything you know. That sounds so cool. Do I want to be a dominatrix? Am I about to do another career change? Because that sounds so fun. That sounds so fun. Okay. And I'm sorry, black leather. Yeah. Come at me with some black leather. I'm here for it. That is like, Aries vibes all day, right? No, just me? Cool. Whatever. Okay. So I also want to share some quotes, because I'm so in love with this book right now. Everything about it. And I'm only 4 chapters in, so I'm really hoping that I maintain this enthusiasm. But if I don't, that's okay too. I'll just share the next thing I've moved on to. So the quote that I wanted to share at this juncture is, a huge amount of what we say happens non-verbally, and it goes way beyond body language. And when she was talking about this, the reason I'm talking about this quote is because that's the energetics part of the power dynamic. Oh, she gave such a good example, and yeah, I think I can go ahead and use it. So I think we all know that, like, well, maybe not. I feel like that's a bit presumptuous of me, but I feel like it's talked about a lot. Excuse me. Oh, I don't have water in here. That's wild. Okay, whatever. I feel like it's talked about a lot where we do a lot of communication non-verbally. So without just using words, our posture, our facial expressions, the energy, the emotions that we're feeling, you can, all of that plays a role. You can sense how somebody is feeling just by being in their energy field, just by being around them. And we all have the ability to do this because we are all just like these conduits for energy, and we all have the ability to sense energies. We all just do it in different ways, but our bodies, we are all able to sense energy through our bodies. Our bodies are one of our greatest tools for our intuition and for, understanding our environment through touch and all kinds of things, but also through our intuition and feeling energetically. So one of the examples she gave was like a huge amount of what we say happens non-verbally, and it goes way beyond body language. And one of the ways that she explained this was, let's say your neighbor's playing, the example she gave in the book was like, and I think this was an example she used for one of the later chapters, but I'm going to use it now. So let's say your neighbor's playing music super, super loud, and you are obviously trying to sleep and really excited about going to sleep, but you need to go and say something to your neighbor because who knows how long this music is going to be playing. Personally, if it were me, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat because I'm getting over the people pleaser, like good girl thing, and I'm trying to take up space. And so that would be my first reaction, like, oh, I don't want to have to go and say something to this person because I just don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. I don't want to like that. The freaking harmonizer in me is like, nope, everyone needs to be okay and live and do their own thing. But when you're infringing on my time and my space, I'm going to say something because I'm not enjoying this, and my experience is important to me. So let's say you were going to go and say something to your neighbor who's playing the really loud music. There are a few ways you can approach it. If you're going to be in your unhealthy expression, then you could go and you could be like, you could have an attitude about it, and you could be like, hey, would you mind turning your music down? Like, I'm trying to sleep. It's so rude of you. Probably not going to be met with him or her, whoever your neighbor is. We'll say it's a him for the purposes of this conversation, just to make it easy for me. So he's probably not going to appreciate that kind of energy. Now, when you're working with the submissive and dominant energies, and you're able to own the energy, and your focus and attention are congruent with your words and intention and communication, it creates a really powerful energy. So the example she gave, and I was just like, oh my God, this lady is so talented. How does she do this naturally? I'm going to learn this skill because I don't have it at the moment, but I am cultivating it as we speak. So in a submissive way, you could say, oh, and she also gave techniques like when you're I need to go back and take more notes because the way that you say things, like using I statements, turns the attention inward. I statements are a submissive thing. You statements are a dominating thing, but it doesn't have to be in this accusatory way. And I feel like that can get confusing because in like nonviolent communication and that kind of stuff, like putting the focus on yourself when you're communicating, I don't know if it's nonviolent communication, I'm making an assumption there, but when you're communicating, what I have learned to do is use I statements rather than you statements, because when you say you, it makes the person automatically get defensive because you are accusing them of something. You're telling them about themselves, and they know themselves better than you do. So of course they're going to be like, hold up, don't tell me about myself. And it just creates a not great environment for that conversation to thrive and be productive in like a healthy, great way. So that's why I feel like this concept of using the I statements to dictate the submissive or dominant air is really interesting. So if you're going to tell your neighbor to turn the music down and you're going to come at it from a dominant place, you could say, hey, oh God, how did she put it? It was, I don't even remember. Crap. She would basically was just very straightforward about it. Like, hi, I have to go to work in the morning. Can you please turn your music down? Or would you mind or please turn your music down? And with that tone, like, I have to go to work in the morning. You have been playing loud music. Please turn your music down. Is that something that you think you can do? Or something like that. That sounded really bitchy of me, but I forgot how she said it. And it's the way that she asserted, like, hey, this is my need. This is what I'm asking you for in this moment. And her tone and the energy of, I'm placing my focus and attention fully on you and what you're doing in this moment. So her attention, when she's saying this in the dominant way, is on this man playing this loud music, which is very obnoxious and like intrusive. And when you are able to speak up in and assert yourself and stand in your power and be able to assert dominance, not in a commanding, controlling way, but in a very um, influential way, because you're really trying to, when you have the dominant energy, you're just trying to exert influence. Like, you're not trying to control anybody. It's about influence. And the submissive way of saying it, again, is still very direct, but it's very me focused. It's not necessarily about him playing the music. It's more like, I have a long day tomorrow and I really need my sleep. So I would appreciate it if you could turn the music down. Very all going inward, focusing on your needs, your inner world, keeping it inside of you. With the dominant one in the example, she basically said that one of the ways that you can approach it when you are trying to be dominant and somebody comes back at you and pushes back up against that. So let's say the guy comes back at you with an attitude. When you healthily and very confidently standing in your power, you take the dominant stance and you say, hey, please turn your music down. The walls are very thin and I can hear everything and it's keeping me awake. And then he's like, well, no, I'm not going to turn the music down because I need it to study. She said the way that you deal with that situation is you ask the person a question, because that, again, puts the emphasis back on them and it puts your attention and focus back on that person. And it can help you to not feel like you're being disarmed or put on the spot, because sometimes in these interactions, like I tend to want to avoid conflict and confrontation. And so I'll freeze up. If you put me on the spot and I'm not ready for it, I'll freeze up and I won't know what to say. And that's when the whole good girl persona will come in. And then I'll resort to like not wanting to cause waves and not wanting to take up space. And oh my God, I'm so sorry for bothering you. I was just wondering if you could turn your music down because like I don't want to be a bad neighbor. And it's totally fine if you can't. Like, I understand if you can't. It's kind of keeping me awake. But I totally understand. It's your apartment and I know you want to listen to music and like I don't want to intrude on your life. Like, that's not the way to go about it, because you're coming at it from this, your energy's incongruent. So in that respect, it's like you're asking for what you need, but you're not standing in your power about it. You're being apologetic. You're almost like you're saying what you need, but then you're also like, but you don't have to meet me my need. I'm telling you what it is, but like it's totally fine because your needs are obviously more important. It takes you out of standing in your power when you do that. The dark feminine energy is about being very unapologetic. Like, you're not apologizing for having needs and wants and being in tune with them and then asking for what you need and want. No, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're taught that when you ask for what you need and want, it makes you needy and it makes you like this high maintenance woman. And no, absolutely not. It makes you very strong to know what you want and know what you need and be able to communicate that confidently and clearly and be able to stand up for yourself in the face of somebody not accepting those things or not being on board with those things. Oh my gosh, got a little passionate about that. So anyway, the book is really helping me to understand that power is, and the domination aspect, it's not about having control over others. It's about deeply understanding yourself, your energy, and how you are showing up in the world. And for me, this is a huge shift from how I used to think about power, which I thought was about being independent and always being in control and being able to control the situation, dominating a conversation by just kind of like being able to lead the conversation. And I always wanted to be the leader of the conversation. Even though I think I practice pretty good energy dynamics where like I'll put the ball in your court and then I'll catch the ball. And I feel like I have a pretty good flow in conversations. It's in other places where the power dynamics get a bit confusing for me. And honestly, in conversation too, I'm sure that I'm not a master at it. Yeah. So anyway, so the introduction of the book really challenges the way that women have been conditioned to view power. And I love that because she calls us out, but she does it in such a like loving way. And it's so supportive. And like, it's almost like she's calling you out like, girl, why? You know that if you did it like this, you would feel so much better. So let's do it like that. And I'm going to show you how to do it. And it feels so nice. It's not like she's like, get your shit together. It doesn't feel like that kind of a vibe, even though that's an okay vibe too. So we've women have been conditioned to view power in a specific way, and she even brings it back to childhood and how society kind of like grooms us to be these um different ways. Like men are put into a box and women are put into a box. Boys are praised and punished for their performance. Girls are praised and punished for who they are. Boy, it's like, oh, well, what did you do? Great job. You tackled the guy and you got the field goal. And oh my God, I feel like I'm being so like stereotypical and ignorant right now. But it was the first example that came to mind. I'm not going to judge myself for it. And then a girl, it'll be more like, oh, you're so pretty. You're so sweet. Oh my gosh, you're so quiet. You never cause any problems. Like that's what girls get praised for. Not good job for winning the science fair. And like, I mean, I'm sure there are girls that get praised for that. But generally in our society, women are praised for their looks, men are praised for their performance. Or not just looks, but who you are. Women are praised for who they are. Oh, you're such a nurturing mom, which is great. I mean, I think it's wonderful to be praised for who you are and be praised for being a nurturing mom. But also, how about not putting the focus on who I am as a person? Let's like I mean, I think that's important too, to put a focus on who you are as a person. I think I just talked myself into a circle. Why can't we just praise everybody? Like, why can't everybody be acknowledged for who they are and what they do? Like, why is there this disparity? I think that's the focus of this conversation. Okay. So anyway, power is not about dominance or force. It's about understanding how energy flows between people and also within ourselves. And I really like that the author Urbaniak, she spoke about this concept of the conversation under the conversation, the unspoken power dynamics that dictate a lot of how we interact, and that these hidden dynamics can leave us feeling like we're not enough or that we constantly have to prove our worth. And it happens in so many ways, in messaging through the media, in traditional role expectations, comments that people make, not thinking anything of it because it's just stuff that we've been conditioned to feel is normal. So of course we're not going to think anything of it when we make these comments. I find myself making comments sometimes and I'm like, whoa, that's not actually my belief. I'm just saying that because I've heard it so much. It's so commonplace that I'm just saying it. And I don't even actually align or believe that. It's just so socially accepted. And so I've been catching myself lately because I'm all about the self-awareness and I want to be observing and be very mindful of my behaviors and my words and my energy. Because as I'm more aware of those things, I'm more mindfully intentionally creating my world, my universe, my reality, my experience. So back to the whole good girl thing. Oh my gosh, I remember when I was constantly trying to be the good girl, like always, there's so much pressure. And I didn't even know that's what I was trying to do. I thought I was trying to be a good person. I didn't know I was trying to be a good girl. And God, I was reflecting on this a couple of days ago. I was always saying yes. Like I felt like I physically couldn't say no. I did everything in my power to avoid confrontation, to the point that I would self-sacrifice and punish and torture myself. I would be in such emotional turmoil, but I was like, I am not confronting this. We are sweeping it under the rug, and I'm never going to address it because heaven forbid there's a conflict, or I hurt somebody's feelings, or somebody doesn't like me or thinks I'm like a bad person. Heaven forbid. And I was so concerned with what other people thought of me. I had some very extreme OCD tendencies. Like I'm gonna open up my little Pandora's box of personal things right now, because I don't like to hold in things that I feel shame about, because that just breeds more shame. So if it's something that I'm like feeling weird about, no, I'm gonna talk about it. So I did this. I feel like it's really freaking weird. And if anybody else did this, please let me know, because I feel like I'm the only person ever. I remember my sister being like, "What are you doing?" My sister I'm referring to, she's 2 years younger than me. So I used to have a notebook, and I would put grid lines in it for the days of the week. So a calendar. That's what you call that, not grid lines. I would put grid lines in. I made a calendar in my notebook, and I would keep track of which outfit I wore every day, because I didn't want to repeat the same outfit in a week, because I could have sworn everybody would know and they would think I was like this dirty girl with no clothes and style. Like, what? I had my outfits perfectly spaced out so that I did not wear the same thing before I had worn every outfit that I was open to wearing. Like, just wild stuff like that, because I was so concerned about what somebody would say if, oh my God, Ashley, didn't you wear that shirt earlier this week? That was one of my deepest fears. What? Why? Who cares? I used to see people wearing the same shirt multiple times in a week, and I didn't care. I didn't have any judgment of them about it, other than I noticed, like, oh, I think they already wore that shirt this week. Like, who gives a crap? And I felt so freaking depleted all the time. I was so exhausted. My sense of self-worth was non-existent. I had no self-esteem. I hadn't even really learned how to pretend to be confident at that point. I was just trying to get through life. I was so painfully shy. It was difficult for me to even walk up to a counter and order a slice of pizza at a food court. I didn't like calling, if I had to call a company for something, like anything I had to do where I had to call or speak to customer service. Nope. I didn't want any attention on me. And I think that's actually one of the shadows of Aries, one of the lower expressions of Aries. And I'm an Aries sun. And it's to hide, because Aries is like the bold leader, the warrior that puts herself out there first, the initiator, the go-getter, the self-starter, very self-assured and confident and stands in their power, the warrior archetype. And so when you are in the unhealthy or the lower expression of that, the immature expression of that, it's hiding. It's a fear of being seen. It's not wanting to go first. It's not wanting to sit at the front of the class. And man, that was really a huge thing for me when I was younger. My Libra moon was my whole personality. I just want everyone to be okay, and I just want us all to be friends, and I want to be liked. And yeah, man. So I was always the buffer, the glue. I was the referee. Yeah. And I just wanted to be the go-to for everyone and everything, because it gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me my value, because I couldn't create that value within myself on my own. And so I had to create it outside of myself, because that's all I knew that there was. I didn't know that I was supposed to create it within myself. And honestly, my true self was never seen, except for at home. And at home, I was so angry. I had so much inner rage as a teenager, as many of us do. It's a very tumultuous hormonal time. And like, I remember my family just thinking I was a bitch. They always were just like, you're just a moody bitch. Ashley's just a moody bitch who flies off the wall and is, angry at the world. And I was so angry at the world. I had so much rage and suppressed emotions, but especially suppressed rage and anger. And some of that, yeah, was from sexual trauma in my childhood. Some of it was from past lives and the bull crap that I've gone through, and from speaking up and just, being me. And it all kept building up. And it wasn't until I started stepping back and noticing these invisible power plays that I began to reclaim my sense of self. And it didn't start with me noticing the power plays. It started with me just starting to understand my emotions better. It started with me going to counseling and therapy. And it didn't start until I was an adult already out in the world, probably my 30s. I did read a lot of psychology books and stuff in my 20s, but it wasn't for the purpose of going inward. It was for the purpose of exuding the outward persona that I needed to exude so that I could be who I needed to be, so I could play the role I needed to play in whatever situation I was in. That was why. And my focus has changed now that I have healed a lot, and I am very focused on healing and self-awareness and really embodying my true expression. And so now when I study psychology and when I study energetics and body language and communication, I'm not doing it from this place of how can I mold myself to be what I'm needed to be in this moment. It's more from a place of how can I get to know myself so that I can express that authentically, even when it feels uncomfortable, because it might not be welcomed or met with open arms. And so another quote that I really liked was, what the world needs now is women unbound, who can switch power dynamics with ease, speaking their truth, envisioning bold solutions, and refining what power looks like. I love that. I would love, love, love for us all to just get together and redefine what power looks like, what a powerful, deeply feminine woman looks like. She looks like this. I'm just kidding. Actually, no, I'm not kidding. That is what she looks like because I am a deeply powerful feminine woman. So if you're not watching the video of this, it was me posing. Okay, the same way I always pose with my hand right under my chin. It is a compulsion. Okay, so I really want to encourage everybody right now, you listening to this, I want to encourage you to take a look at your life right now and just look at where you're giving your power away. And whatever popped into your head first, maybe just look at that. And if nothing popped into your head, that's okay too. You can journal about it, or you can just start paying attention. Start paying attention to where you're giving your power away. When are you choosing not to stand in your power? When are you choosing to hide or minimize or trivialize or dim yourself or make yourself smaller out of fear? And I want you to think about how you can reclaim it and reflect on moments where you felt invisible power dynamics at play that potentially made you feel invisible or small or gaslighted or further reinforced you feeling like you needed to be the good girl to survive or to feel safe. And also, I want you to think about a recent interaction you had. Maybe a conversation at work. Maybe it was a conversation with a loved one. Maybe it was your partner. Maybe it was your child. Maybe it was a colleague. Maybe it was your friend. But where was your attention? Were you more focused outward? Or did you take a step back and did you turn inward? And I want you to start kind of paying attention to where you are focusing your attention and notice how shifting that focus can change the entire dynamic. And like I was saying, I was listening to this earlier and I had to take Rocket to the park and I had my headphones in. And normally when I take Rocket to the dog park, Rocket is my dog, in case you're new and this is the first episode you've ever heard. She's 8 months now. We've had her since she was 6 weeks old. So I still think she's forever a puppy to me, but 7, 8 months, she's still a puppy. And I was taking her to the dog park and we were always working on training. And I'm always asserting dominance in a very leadership kind of way, not in a, I want you to be scared of me and I'm going to like hold you down and assert my dominance like I'm a dog kind of way, because not my style. And so I noticed that I had headphones in and I was walking her to the dog park, and we've been working on walking where if she's pulling on the leash, I stop, or I'll pull back a little bit to be like, hey, what are you doing? And she was pulling so much, and we've been great walking to the dog park. She has had so much slack in her leash. She listens really well. If I'm like, hey, stay beside me, she'll pay attention and she just trots along beside me. She knows how to walk to the dog park. But we also have this power dynamic. It's not just between you and another human. It's your energy and other energy. And that includes the law of attraction and the universe and all of that. So when I was walking her with my headphones in, I wasn't really paying attention to her. I wasn't really focused on the dog park. I was focused on listening to the book and making sure I was absorbing the information and seeing how it related to me and my experiences and paying attention to memories that were coming up and examples of how I was doing those things in my life. And she was pulling and she was not listening to me. I had to turn around and walk back to the sidewalk across from the dog park 3 times. And I found myself still not paying attention to her. I was speaking to her, but it was kind of a half attention kind of a thing. And then I realized I was like, oh, I'm reading this book. Let me, because she mentions it a lot in the book, like where you're placing your attention. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause the book and I'm going to actually control the flow of my energy. And I'm going to open it up and I'm placing my full 100% of my focus and attention on Rocket. I looked at her, I turned my body toward her, and then I energetically, through setting my intention and standing up straight and making sure I was really standing in my power and being very a confident leader so that she could relax into following my leadership. And I lowered my tone of voice and I looked her in the eye and I said, sit. And she sat. And then I said, you are not going to pull. You're going to walk right beside me. And I started walking and she stayed right beside me and she did not pull. So just that small shift of energy created a huge difference in how she was reacting to my energy. And I feel like that's such a good example because that happens all the time. It happens when you are talking to your husband or your boyfriend. If you are coming from this place of whatever, it doesn't matter what your words are, they're going to feel your energy. And so that's kind of where I think I'm going to wrap it up today. I think it would be really fun exercise to try that out on your own. Like try being very inwardly focused and see what that energy feels like when you're conversing or having an interaction with somebody, and then see how it feels to be more outwardly focused when you're having a conversation with somebody. When you are speaking, the focus is supposed to be on the other person. You're gauging their reactions, you're gauging their interest, you're gauging how they're communicating with you so that what the actual crap was that? You're gauging how they're something just like flew off my face. I hope it was my hand and not my face. But you're gauging their reaction so that you can amend or modify your communication so that you're, getting your message across and you're working with them because it's an ebb and flow between energy when you're interacting with somebody. If you're not paying attention to the other person and their reactions at all, and you're only thinking about you and telling the story and your experience in that interaction, you are giving up 50% of that interaction. When you're interacting with another person, it's 50% you and 50% them. And it's this ebb and flow of who's leading and who is submitting. And the person speaking is the one leading. They're the one who is dominant. And so you pay attention to the other person. That when the person is listening, that's more of a submissive energy. And I don't know all the ins and outs and details about it yet, but that is what I gathered from it. Highly recommend you read the book because this is all through my perspective and my lens, which is all good and great. But I think that, reading it yourself or listening to it yourself also would create some great insights and takeaways. So I'm listening to it on Spotify. I have Spotify Premium, so you can listen to audiobooks for free up to a certain amount of hours a month. And it is on Audible. I saw it on there, and then you can also order it from Amazon. And I know Barnes and Nobles. Is it Barnes and Noble or is there an S on there? I know that B&N carries it. Yeah, I clearly need to go there more often. I even have a membership card. I don't go because every time I go, I get a stack of books. And like I have stacks of books that I still haven't read. And my boyfriend was like, he was like, why are you going to get more books? You already have book. Have you read all these books you have? And I was like, no, I'm saving them for when I'm ready to read them. I'm a book collector. I think I collect more books than I read. I do read a lot of books too, and I'll go through phases where I read a bunch of books all the time. Then I go through other phases where I'm like, it takes me forever to read one book and I'm just not interested or I don't read it all. It really depends on where my attention is at. But anyway, highly recommend this book. 4 chapters in, highly recommending it, but still, it's great. It's been a great introduction. And this was supposed to be a longer episode, but I think I'm going to stop it here. And right now, I'm really thinking I think I want to create a series out of this and really take time to talk about the different parts, because the next part that I was going to talk about is domination and submission and those concepts, and how they're not about control or surrender. They're about where you focus your energy. And she really gets in depth about that and gives really great examples. And I was really only talking about the introduction today, but I was kind of trying to get into the weeds before I'd even really gotten into the weeds, because I just love the way that she communicates these concepts, and the examples that she gives are so juicy and just like, oh, that makes so much sense. Yes, I can see myself in that. So check out the book if you're interested. It's called Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power by Kasia Urbaniak. Really butchering that, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me in this episode. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.